buy it for like a month.
Yeah, I might have forgot that one. I'm just gonna test that. I feel like it's neat to see what I think the best around here.
All right, guys, grab some pizza. We are ready to go now. Finally figured out how to use Google.
Thank you for getting the pizza.
For sure. Thank Benzinga, our media sponsor.
They just got a $300 million.
Yeah, they can afford it. All right, everyone, welcome to the fourth edition of Wolverine Blockchain this semester. Today, we're going to be talking about the metaverse and NFTs, from more of a cultural perspective rather than the technological perspective that we usually go for, but it should be fun. So bear with me here. All right, so here we see The Thinker by Rodin. In the early 20th century, like the 1905, I think, Rodin created The Thinker. Can anyone tell me where the statue can be found? One guess for Italy. Anyone else?
Yeah, it is Italy.
All right, no other guesses. So as it turns out, there are over 20 thinkers, and half of them were actually produced after Rodin's death. Yet all of them are considered originals. And this was like a turning point for the embrace of industrialization in art and what it means precisely to be an artist. So a world war and a few million televisions later, industrialization was now the defining force of American culture, a culture more viral and global than we had ever seen. The rise of pop art made Andy Warhol, who created the Campbell's soup here, an international icon and also close friends with Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn's suicide greatly impacted Warhol, and the constant reminders on the televisions that were popping up everywhere only made it worse for him. So, kind of angry with the consumerism that made him famous, Warhol released his most famous piece, Marilyn Diptych, just 4 months after her death. So using the industrialized silkscreen method, he basically shocked the world with 40 lifeless, dead Marilyn faces, and it was like incredibly profound for the time. So clearly Warhol had some sort of resentment towards the direction that society was taking, and kind of the impossibility of turning back at this point. But luckily, from this pain came quite a bit of beauty. So Warhol's influence inspired the next generation of artists who defined the global mass-produced and increasingly digital art of today. So from Basquiat to Hearing, from Koons to Kaws, and from Hearst to Murakami, the effects of the digital revolution are quite evident today. So, who can tell me which artist is in the portfolio of all of these celebrity collectors? Any other guesses?
Yeah, I'd say Larva Lab.
Yeah, Larva Labs is the guess. You guys are too smart. As it turns out, all of these celebrities own CryptoPunks, a collection of generative art pieces created not by paint, but with code. So, how exactly does one own digital art is another question. So actually using a crypto asset to prove ownership and authenticity, digital art can now be made limited edition with the help of the blockchain. And I would like to make the argument that blockchain will lead to a new renaissance in art and other industries equally as big, if not bigger, than Rodin and Warhol. Creators of the CryptoPunks were the first to realize blockchain technology for art. That's a little bit debated, but we won't get into that. Making CryptoPunks essentially like the ultimate rookie card for NFT collectors. They're paying millions and millions of dollars. Why, you might ask? To flex in the metaverse, of course. So right now our interface rate with the metaverse is fairly limited. Most of it is social media and some online gaming. But our collective time spent in the metaverse as a species is greatly increasing every single day. Okay, so this interface rate problem that we talked about earlier is quite small in the scheme of things, and the rise of virtual reality and augmented reality technology are increasing the interface rate each and every day. So, barring some sort of mass extinction event, it now seems inevitable that we will increase our interface rate with the metaverse to something along the lines of what can be seen in Black Mirror. So this is precisely why digital ownership is the new physical ownership. And if you don't believe me, ask your little cousin how much he spent on Fortnite skins that do absolutely nothing. So the internet connected data all across the world, and blockchain is the payment layer on top of the internet that will unlock and connect value all across the world. So important distinction there. So the first industries to be disrupted are art, gaming, and music, as they were, the most primitive. As well as finance. So blockchain tokens can also be used to program and represent financial products like quantitative trading strategies and LP positions. Blockchain protocols can also facilitate peer-to-peer lending and exchange instantly and anonymously online. So blockchain gives power back to the people in this regard. Now we see why Wall Street and the banks are trying everything they can to slow crypto adoption down. Luckily, it's pretty hard to do without stopping the internet as a whole. And also with some countries adopting it and embracing it, like El Salvador, and a lot of talk in other South American countries lately, the mainstream countries that are trying to push against it will basically have no choice but to adapt or face massive capital flight and potentially irrelevance in the future crypto-based economy. China. In the future, we'll use crypto assets to prove identity for things like universal basic income, healthcare, and voting. Although these crypto assets are much more likely to exist on a private government-run blockchain as opposed to a public one like Ethereum. Eventually, most real-world data will be integrated with the blockchain for the sake of capital efficiencies alone. And it was in this moment that the thinker realized he was already in the metaverse. All right, that's it. So any questions? Thank you.
How much did you spend on Fortnite skins?
Did not spend anything on Fortnite skins, Jay. How much did you spend? I'm not buying it. I don't know. All right. No other questions. So I will now try to make David's audio work. Yo, what's up, David?
What's up? Can you hear me?
Oh, it works. This is amazing. So I don't know if you have anything prepared.
I do not.
If you want to share your screen, you can. Otherwise, we could just have a conversation.
Let's have a conversation. I have too many random things on my screen that I'd rather not share publicly.
Yep. No, that's totally fine. So I'll kind of face you towards the rest of the crew. Actually, I should just put this up here.
I only say that because I literally was just looking at my crypto holdings and I was like, I don't want that to be public.
Yeah, probably not the best idea. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so if you guys don't know, David was the former president of Wolverine blockchain before Ryan and I took over, and now he is working on an NFT project called Proof of Beauty Studios. So David, you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into crypto and what led you to creating Proof of Beauty?
Yeah. I mean, I was hooked onto crypto because of this club about when I was a freshman at U of M. This was about 2017, 2018 during the ICO bubble. During that time, there was really no NFTs, DeFi, or any of that for that matter. It was quite a bit of shitcoins, and I've certainly lost my share of money then. But yeah, so I got hooked then. I started reading the white papers, and then it was part of the club, and that stuck along with me. And eventually, because of the club, I decided to pursue a career in crypto. So I joined 0x Protocol. So if you know the asset ZRX, I worked at that team for about I want to say 2 years at this point, both as an intern, part time, and then full time. So I was working in the DeFi space, building DeFi protocols for about a year and a half, 2 years. So that was my kind of first dip into the crypto space. But throughout this whole process of DeFi growing, Crypto Kitties was happening, Crypto Punks was released, and all these assets. And I was working at an organization that also had a deep love for NFTs, and that kind of gave me a lot of inspiration eventually to create my own NFTs. And fortunately, one of them took off, and here I am running a studio that creates NFTs for a living, and I create whatever I want in that way. So, we're fully independent. We are not. We don't have any investors in any way, but we're fully self-funded because of the NFTs that we produce. But yeah, that's a bit about me. So I could definitely speak about the DeFi aspect of it all, the NFTs, Metaverse things as well. I've definitely certainly have had the experience from the bear cycle from 2017 onwards, and then now we have a DeFi summer, NFT summer, and then I don't know what you call a fall right now. I guess just a good rally right now. So yeah.
Yeah. So if you have any like thoughts or comments on what I presented, you could go ahead and do that now, and then I'll just turn it over to the other members to kind of guide the direction.
Yeah. First of all, that was a great presentation, Logan. That was really well done.
Thank you.
and I think for a lot of folks with NFTs, and myself included, it took me quite a while to get it. But the key thing to me is the more you look at how soft real world assets really are, the more you understand NFT assets and crypto assets, right? If you were to buy like land is effectively a paper settlement system representing an asset that you can conceive as off chain or off the legal landscape, because a plot of land cannot be represented in truly as paper, right? But we do that all the time, right? We sign documents to buy land, right? So we're really bounded by a legal enforcement system that your land is in fact yours. And if you look at it in more of those kind of perspective, at the relative fragility of even what a financial position really is, it's a contract that you signed with a hedge fund or whatever financial institution. You start to realize that NFTs is just kind of a more internet native expression of these very similar assets. So that's how I think a lot of folks will start to click in their mind. It's if you keep on wondering, it's just a JPEG or whatever, it's just that or just that, you can also make a very fair argument for a lot of real world assets. And then when you look at those at parity, I do think that an NFT is actually a better system of to store value, to settle value. So I think that's my only perspective I'm going to add there.
All right, that's great. So do you guys want to take this in like the technology direction, the art direction, proof of beauty, or another application of NFTs? What's up, Heyman?
I'd just love to hear like David's perspective on where the crypto space, just like from like from like the side of like trading tokens, etc. Like where he sees that evolving, and also just the NFT space in general, where he sees that evolving like in the next couple of years.
Okay, were you able to hear that?
I think I heard that. So I can answer both both, and I obviously nobody has a good answer to this. I think and everybody that tells you to have a good answer, I think they're bullshitting you, because every few years we say something's gonna happen, and then it doesn't actually happen, and something else completely different happens. So I mean, 3 years ago, the main thesis around NFT, around crypto, and the idea of trading is that, well, if we can use a settlement network that isn't region locked in any way, that should theoretically tap into more markets and more customers and more suppliers and more issuers of assets. And theoretically, that just means, you just have a larger freaking market, right? And a market that should present transparency, and transparency gets us closer to an equitable system. If you were to ask us 3 years ago in the DeFi space, how do we do that? I don't think we would have said anything close to what we have today. To predict it, it's again very hard. But now that I look in retrospect, things like Uniswap, I think are so incredibly powerful. And I think that these primitives of markets that we're building, it's just going to allow what we used to do with social, building a website, and make that just much more possible. Also with asset issuance, so you're seeing folks issuing DAO tokens, like the FWB Friends with Benefits DAO, which recently got I believe A16Z has put a raise into has put some money into that protocol. But just the idea that you could spend a weekend and just issue a token and then put it on Uniswap and have a fairly liquid market. We couldn't do that a year and a half ago, right? And now we can. And I think that we're every day by day it's getting easier and easier and easier to distribute ideas in that way and get funding to do ideas. So the fact that I can trade somebody's hour now with people I don't even know, that's pretty impressive, I think, even from a perspective of a decade ago, right? And we're going to continue to see that. And I know that at ZeroX Protocol they have a really big cultural thesis where everything in the world will get tokenized, and I very much so subscribe to that. And 3 years ago we just didn't have the infrastructure to do that, and now we do. But the infrastructure does have inefficiencies, both capital inefficiencies, trade inefficiencies, because Ethereum is quite slow, whatever. But and I think NFTs is a very natural extension of this very powerful movement. And I think this really allows folks to speculate in ways that really is representative of them. Whereas before, your ability to speculate in the future and put your capital where it's where your mouth is was incredibly hard. Either you were a U.S. citizen, of a certain skin color, went to a certain school and have a certain job, you're allowed to do that. Now it's a lot more unbounded, and I think that's very powerful. And also mostly equally, somebody who's smarter can manipulate a system where uneducated folks join. But that's a double-sided coin of of the crypto markets, and we plan to see a lot of rug pulls. So both the good and the bad.
On that note, David, today was actually very historic. For a brief moment, Shiba Inu flipped Dogecoin. What is your take on the dog coins and kind of the new entrance to the crypto market, what they could do to navigate it the best?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I don't personally own any of those tokens, these meme coins, not because I don't like them. It's just it's not the kind of exposure I'm interested in. But I feel like they're the ultimate form of what a crypto asset is. I think Bitcoin and any of these things are they're all meme coins to certain amounts of extent. They're a meme coin presenting a different meme, and Bitcoin's memes, I think, are very powerful and transcendent meme that allows for 60K USD value, and this perception that there's only going to be 21 million of them, which we base on the fact that the blockchain works, and economics works, right? And Ethereum has its own meme, and I think that these are very technical memes, and I think they have a certain audience, but like Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, these things have just a more internet native story, and I feel like they leaned into something that NFTs tapped into. And power to them for figuring that out. That you can in fact create a really memey token, and it's more of like a culture token than anything else. And they created, I don't know exactly what their supply mechanics are, and that's why I don't invest in them. And also it doesn't have a degree of seriousness to their assets. I don't think a lot of folks I know that buy into those things are they always say it with a chuckle, and I think that's very powerful for that asset. Is people can laugh about it, both their losses and their gains, and they just found a very good financial vertical that works really well in the internet financial social layer. And because I think that since Wall Street Bets was able to pull that crap off with GameStop, that to me was enough proof that something like Shiba Inu or Dogecoin would more than be enough to succeed.
Do you think that the benefits of bringing more people into crypto through these dog coins is greater than maybe the reputation it casts on cryptocurrency as a whole?
I think the reputation is pretty short term. I think the crypto space is a little bit of too much of hard on with reputation, because reputation changes so fast with perception. It doesn't take much to say in a few months the crypto is this or that, and in the next few months the ideologue around crypto changes again. So I'm not too in fear of that, to be honest. If it presents a image of playfulness or just recklessness about about our place, it's like we've had that meme for years. That is just how the crypto space has been and is, and I don't find fault with that, to be honest, because I think because of that, it also creates like a nice protective layer where folks that are trying to regulate us or work against the crypto ecosystem, they are more willing to laugh at us than say that we're a potential threat. So there's good and bad. There's good and bad to it.
Interesting. So this conversation reminded me of the Darwinian definition of meme that you introduced me to a couple of years ago in Wolverine blockchain. So if you could explain that quickly and then talk about the meme that you decided to build proof of beauty from.
Yeah. So I don't even frankly remember fully my description, but I'll try my best. But I definitely gave a presentation on just the subject matter of memetics, and the idea that if you were to use like biological evolution as that frame of mind to look at the success and lack of success of stories amongst cultures, I think you'll learn a lot. Like for one, it's stories are passed person by person. And have this reproductive capacity. If it's a good story, it's spread further, and it also has a bit of like variance to it. Every time somebody tells a story, it changes a little bit, right? So it just mimics so much about how Darwin proposed biological evolution occurs. And if you were to look at crypto assets in that way, I think a lot of these make a lot of sense. I think Bitcoin and even blockchain in general, these kind of assets, the first proof of work assets, they made a really great story. The one that is culturally transcendent, that is language transcendent. You can read that. Yeah, well, you can explain the blockchain with pictures, with just any language. It's one based off of economics and basic understanding of scarcity. And scarcity, at least if we all live on a scarce world, because all humans do, its story is very easy to spread, and its thesis to its continued success is also very easy to spread, right? And there's been so many varieties of that story being told, but it still holds its core identity that Bitcoin has potential store of value, and that bleeds into that asset success, right? And Ethereum took that same story and just kind of forked it a little bit and changed it and said, hey, we can actually put on top of it a computational layer and say we can still preserve this great story, this great meme, and it can quote unquote survive in this market because as it gets told again and again, it still preserves its own story. And you can say this about a lot of other assets, right? And I think this is why, if you were to study all the forks that occurred on Bitcoin Gold, there's been, BCH and all these different ones, and why most forks failed. It's just, if you study it at a purely Darwinistic level, it's like, well, they were competing for the same resources as the big story, right? And eventually they have a hard time fighting, and they were eventually drowned out, or just starve out of the resources necessary for that story to perpetuate and for that coin to be successful. But I say that as somebody who loves BCH as well, and I see and I know why it exists and its purpose on this planet. But yeah, so I guess towards Proof of Beauty, we built a project, and the kind of started it all was we built something called Hash, and it was all about building NFTs that represent moments of history on the Ethereum blockchain. So you can take like a transaction on the blockchain and feed it into our system, and it generates a piece of art. And so people captured, the DAO hack, the big rug pulls, the first deposit into ETH2, and took those, transactions and turned those into NFT art. And that really kind of took off over the span of last year or this year. Yeah, so I'm a kind of ETH monkey. I do hold a crap load of ETH and a lot less of everything else. So
Awesome. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask David?
He had a question.
Well, no, I was just gonna ask, like, when we were talking about the Shiba and Doge, they're obviously meme coins, but then you went ahead and said that you consider Bitcoin to be somewhat of a meme as well. Are there any coins that like you think don't fit that mold?
I think if you look at asset philosophy, just the philosophy of what makes things valuable, I think they're all meme coins to some extent, or meme assets to some extent. Like, people were using seashells, people were using massive like 2-ton rocks to represent assets, to represent value, right? Like the US dollar, even when it was a gold standard, you had to trust an institution that the gold was in fact there. Stable coins, you had a trust circle or trust the tether institution to actually fully back your stable coin. They're all to degrees stories, and as the story gets more and more concrete, it becomes less, I think, a meme in the more internet sense. But like I wouldn't consider any of these less or more like more memey. It's more so, which story do you think holds its truth the best, and you should invest in those things that you believe in. So like, I know that the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trade Commission, recently fined USDT, or the Tether guys, $45 million for saying that your asset is in fact backed by the US dollar, and they said that no, you have made a fraudulent or not truthful claim, and that's a lot to be said there, right? I do know that from the research that the CFTC done, that they only have a 28% reserve ratio for their assets. So if 29% of the population wants, or 29% of the USDT supply goes in and withdraws it, obviously they would have a bank run, and they would not be able to be solvent and provide that 1% left, right? And you can say the same about USDC, right? And so where does that $1 come from? It's really just a perception that that day may not happen, right? And we've used that with banks as well. Banks all carry reserve ratios as well, right? So it's really just a matter of choosing which memes that you believe in, I think. And I think it's really a deeper reflection of just what are your, leanings, both political, philosophical, or whatever. And I just happen to not lean on the way of the Dogecoins and stuff personally, but I do see why people own those, and ever getting closer to one day owning them because the argument gets clearer and clearer in my head, but it's not something that I speculate in.
That's great. Does anyone else have a question?
So, obviously, you have a few very exciting NFT projects, and you're an expert in the field. So I was just wondering what excites you, like from like a project perspective, like what projects have really been exciting you recently, not only from a token standpoint, but also NFT projects as well.
Yeah. Good question. I mean, just as coming out of my time at 0x, I'm still very excited about DeFi projects. And I think that the infrastructure that they enable is just so transformative. And I think if we're going to have a very strong future adoption, it's going to be the result of these fundamental protocols that it has been offered. Uniswap being so important to it, and I think Uniswap spawning all those other derivative AMMs like Balancer, whatever. I'm a very active user of Compound, and I think all these things for fungible assets has been very powerful, and we have yet to see those but we haven't seen the maturity yet for NFTs. And if you were to look at just the market capitalization of like the real estate markets or other traditional non-fungible assets, I think we have a very long way to go when it comes to producing NFTs and NFT protocols that can really enhance experience. And I think even starting with loaning markets that allows me to put a CryptoPunk, a Bored Ape into a vault and be able to draw USDC. I think those are very simple primitives, but those are very powerful. Fractionalizing protocols, there's a gazillion of those now. Those are very powerful to add to just create more exposure. So I'm very excited about those right now. They're kind of riding off of the wheels of the DeFi summer, and I think those are very fun in general. I'm not a big fan of NFTs. Any NFT that gives you like a coin with them, I think those are very distracting to the value, and you're really asking to be screwed over by the SEC.
But David, your NFT project has a coin that comes with it.
So I mean, I don't like coins. I don't like assets that gives you income bearing coins. I think I should clarify that much. We do have one of our projects that released with a coin, and then the NFT came after, right? Which I'm not going to dwell too much into, but in that sense, I'm eating my own words right now. So yeah, I still don't like NFT projects with ERC20 assets. And I say that as one who has created one.
But you mean like more specifically from the staking sense?
Staking sense, I don't like things that are trying to replicate DeFi summer, and the food token era of the markets. I just think those are very unsustainable and very unhealthy for the market, for so much capital to go into very speculative assets that could very easily be rug pulled in so many different ways. And I don't think people should buy NFTs just because there's an income in a random foreign asset that you will have to continue to sell to recuperate gains from. I think those are incredibly dangerous, and I just don't think they create the right community, personally. So I usually stay away from those. And I say that I also own Hash Masks, which gives me name change token, which trades at whatever cents. I don't know what it is.
So going back to the DeFi summer and the food era, we saw sushi come out from that era, and Ryan and I, we both took it as a joke. You know, we were talking about it.
We all
just
did.
it's just a rip of Uniswap, but now it's not.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, SushiSwap was a fork of Uniswap v2, and then they tossed on top of it a yield farming mechanic, which is I want to say came right off the heels of Compound Finance when they did yield farming, and they kind of just built a great growth product that just grew like a wildfire, and then it grew to a point where it's actually like a legit project. It had its own like rug pull drama with one of their anonymous founders, but then they returned the money. Whatever, I don't know what happened. It's, at this point, I forgot this whole story. But for one, there's a lot of fundamental differences between them and Uniswap, and the differences are the reasons why I own Sushi and not Uni. Where I don't. Well, I do own Uni indirectly, but I own a lot more Sushi. For one is to fund their yield farming system. Their 30 basis point trading fee is distributed differently. Uniswap, all 30 goes to the LP provider in the sense that, and in the SushiSwap's case, I believe it's like 20 goes to the LP or 25 goes to LP, and then 5 basis points or 10 basis points goes to the yield farming vault in some sense. Or it's a protocol fee, not an LP fee. So the protocol accrues that revenue, and I think that's just very powerful for so many ways. It allows a protocol to resist VC money and allow it to be very decentralized, truly. And I think Uniswap fell to that problem with requiring venture capital in funds. It allows SushiSwap to stay fully decentralized. It allowed them to fund their team. It allowed them to yield farm and grow tokens. So I can speak about that on my own level. Is we do have I created a fungible token, and we were looking how do we get liquidity. And honest to God, it felt SushiSwap felt like the better business partner. They had yield farming protocols. They had just a better business support. The customer services available there. And that just made it so much more of a bullish case to me, where Uniswap felt a lot more like it's serving the technology. And you can see that with Uniswap v3, which became very, very technically advanced and very capital efficient. But I spent 3 years building and understanding AMMs, and I frankly don't fully know how Uniswap works with the concentrated liquidity. And that's mainly because I just don't spend a lot of time with Uniswap. But I just think that is such a high barrier of entry, right? We can't expect that from people releasing a shitcoin and expecting folks to be able to set bans for that crap. So I'm not too bullish on Uniswap v3, and I just think that the business is being steered more by centralized parties now. Even though I know that, I know folks at the Uniswap team. I do know that those guys are decentralized folks at heart, but the incentives have just been steering away, and SushiSwap, which came literally out of a meme, somehow just either by random or by intention created a better incentive layer that allowed them to, I want to say, be very, very sustainable, right? And the fact that they're willing to say, hey, we're going to stay on the Uniswap v2 fork. We're not going to upgrade ourselves to v3. I think it's just good business. It's good competitive business in the market. Allows us to choose where we want to be and get the support we want. So both as a customer who needs liquidity and at a incentive level, I like SushiSwap a lot more than Uni personally. And I know that Uniswap governance has its own drama and its own weaknesses. And I've heard enough people compare it to the US government. And that's not a good comparison you want for a decentralized institution. So yeah. I mean, you can't not credit Uniswap for its invention, but it's
Yeah, that's a great take. Okay, so we have time for one more question, and it is like, where do you see the blockchain industry in 5 to 10 years from now? And would you advise trying to join the industry or not?
Yeah, I mean, I stand to benefit from joining this space, right? I joined right during or right after the bull market of ICOs. When ETH crashed to like $200, and the key thing is to me is this place still right now has a huge talent imbalance. Um, you know, and what I mean by that, and there's two ways. First is the folks that have crypto experience. Those guys are some of the most in demand folks I've seen, both from their talent ways, but also their ability to create. So those are the folks that came during the 2017, 2018 era. The guys who stuck it out during the bear market. I've had a lot of my coworkers that are very easily raising money, and mainly of them are raising the money off of the background they've already created for themselves by working in this space. I have folks that have raised money from A16Z. I have a friend who made a NFT protocol to compete against OpenSea, and I told him, like, hey, I wanna participate in your round. He's like, I didn't raise a round. I literally just went to a DAO, got a grant for $3 million for no equity at all. I was like, well, shit, I can't. Well, I can't just donate you money. I can't beat that offer. So, the fact that there's so much capital, not enough talent to capitalize on that capital, it's freaking insane. And I've been getting so much investor inbound, and each one of them I have declined, saying that as a business we have 4 or 5, 6 years worth of money to run, and we don't really have the intentions to become a 100 body team. So I've turned down investors, and I think just all tricks that trickles down into is we still need talent, right? And we need to develop more talent. And I think that folks that join now and spend a few years in here, you're going to reap the rewards of the next true bull cycle, when again the whole cycle begins anew. There's a lot of money, and they want to give it to people with experience. And when that starts to happen, you're going to really reap the rewards. Because like 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago, like a lot of us in crypto, we were all questioning why the fuck did we decided to go into crypto space. But now, if you ask any of them, a lot of those guys are like pseudo retired. Like a lot of them quit the job, and like half of them are in Texas now. The other half, I have no clue where around the world they are, but they're living the life, both intellectually and financially. And it just comes with, I think this is a great space. It's just, we have so much undiscovered things 5 to 10 years from now. Uniswap literally was invented because, and I'm joking, this is not truthful, but like Vitalik probably got drunk one night and wrote up a forum post about this thing called an AMM. And then somebody built it and it became Uniswap, right? Like it's, the innovations in the space is so random sometimes. It's just, it really catches you by surprise. So I don't like to predict the future with it. It's more just, if you stick with the waves and you stay with it, I'm very hard pressed to find anybody who didn't reap any amount of financial, professional, intellectual gains from this space. And we got so many more years to go. And that's why and also we're, 3 years ago, it was so hard to find a job in crypto. Like there was only a few places hiring. But now I know a lot of folks that are looking for people that are willing to join this space, that are hungry to join this space. And I can say that as a on the hiring side, at 0x Protocol, we had like a big thing for us. It's like, if you want to join a crypto firm, we would only choose you out of 2 buckets. It's either you are very good at whatever job you're supposed to do. So if you're an engineer, you're a good engineer, but you're shitty at crypto, then we're like, okay, that's fine. We'll train you up on crypto. Or you have to be on the second bucket, which is you're a junior engineer or a junior analyst, but you just love crypto. Then we could train you up on on the first bucket, which is just making you a more trained professional, but then you have the love for crypto. So that still holds true. And I think a lot of firms right now raise a lot of money. OpenSea raised 100 mil from A16. Everybody and their mother is raising like another 10 mil right now. It's like, I haven't heard of any single institution that's not raising a lot of money right now. So that means a lot of jobs are opening. So, if you want to join the space, join it now. join during the bull market when people are hiring, and stick with it in the bear market. And get your rings around the trunk, and then when the bull market comes again, everybody's going to be in awe of the fact that you were there from the beginning. It's like I joke to a lot of my friends, and I said this not very sober, but it's like become the crypto punk of the industry. Become the OG guys that you can root yourself to the way back of whichever bull bear cycle you can. So I'm able to say I was from the 2017 2018 era, but then if somebody comes in the bar and it's like, oh, I was from the BitNock, the Mount Gox hack, then we all stand back. It's like, okay, that guy, that guy is the alpha. So yeah. So hopefully I made a bullish case to join the space.
Yeah, that's a damn good pitch, David. Thank you so much for joining us again today. And your time. We'd love to have you back on again in the future. But I'm going to end the recording. And so to anyone that is tuning in online, appreciate it. Hope to see you here later. Now I got to find the tab. David, if you could head out if you need to, or feel free to hang around.
I can hang around for a little bit if anybody has any things to chit chat.